Alright, hello everyone. This is your favorite online archery personality. I hope so anyway. And we have a special stream today. Firstly, for those who are checking in for the notification squad, it is 11:46 a.m. And you might be wondering, well, what's going on here? What is this? What's going on? Well, what's happening is that we are doing a live form check. Now, I'll fix a few things up first. That's why I'm waiting for people. But what I've decided to do this time around is to basically do a form check for someone live online. Now, I often do get requests to do this, or the form check part at least. And the rationale behind this, sorry, is that it is partly because it's kind of easier to explain things through a live analysis. I often do type out responses to my viewers, and when people ask for form checks, it's kind of easy to do it that way. But at the same time, you kind of have to show it sometimes. So what I want to do as a one-off for now, we'll see how things go later on, is to walk through what I see when people ask me to critique their form. Now, just bear in mind, most of these things are for beginners. I'm not really giving advanced tips or pointers or critiques because I think when you're at the level where I'm at or high, you don't really need me to point something out. I feel kind of weird pointing out, form faults from people with more experience. So this is most of those starting out who need a bit more guidance. So I've got permission from Chris today. I've already given him feedback, but it'll be easy to show him live, as well as use this opportunity to educate people who are the same position as Chris. Hi Boone, thanks for joining me. So this will be a walkthrough of a form check, and if you have any questions towards the end, feel free to ask. And if you have any footage that you want me to look at and analyze, I'm happy to do so. Again, this is a commentary to educate people on things they can try to improve the archery technique, and hopefully we can learn something from it. So hello to Kevin, glad you can join us, and Princess Sia, advice for beginners. This is actually the whole video is advice for beginners. So we'll flick over to our analysis. So again, thanks to Chris for giving me the okay to share this. Chris is a learner up in Queensland, and when you're down in Melbourne, everything is like above you, unless you're in Antarctica. So say up in like the UK, up in America, literally we are the bottom of the world. So everything is above us. I'm actually hanging upside down right now. The camera's automatically turned 180 to correct it for you Northern Hemisphere people. But here we are. So, why aren't I at work? It's school holidays, Kitty. I thought you needed someone now. It's kind of funny. When you're out of school, you kind of lose track of the school terms unless you have kids. But here, it's school holidays, so that's why I can do this. My actual work is obviously being a teacher. So, yes, Rob, the whole point of the channel is to give advice for beginners. So here's our advice. So Chris is learning. Yes, the Western Australian terms are different to the East side, which is true. So what we have here is Chris. Say hi to Chris. Chris is a new archer. I believe he's in Queensland, and he's just starting out. So there's no club near him. He's just bought his bow and he's asked for pointers. So he's using a toe point R2, which I've reviewed, and according to the description, it is a 32-pound bow. I make this point very carefully because 32 pounds is a pretty reasonable weight to start with for an adult beginner. But, and I say this as a preface to every analysis I do, it's very important when you offer a form check or you ask for advice, that you actually state what draw weight you're using, because often the draw weight is what causes form problems. I think many of you watching this will understand it, so will know this very well. You might think that most people can handle a 30 to 35 pound bow just okay. Doesn't mean you can. So just bear in mind that draw weight can be a factor, but in this case it won't be. There are other things to keep in mind. So let's watch this together first. It's only a short form clip. And I'll give my commentary, and you might have your own observations. This is a nice exercise to walk through. So let's watch this together. We'll watch Chris do a few shots, and then we'll see what the result will be. So it's only 3 minutes long. Let's have a watch. I have the desktop turned off, by the way, but you can imagine the form check and the sound. So there are no bird calls. If you want bird calls, I'll open my window. Tweet, tweet, and that's Chris's form. So I'll leave the comment here towards the end. Let's just watch together first. Okay, I mean, it does kind of sound weird, that sound. I'll turn the sound back on just temporarily. Alright, hopefully there should be a bit of sound there. Just do bear in mind that Chris is entirely self-taught. He's just been watching online references, mostly me, I guess. Alright, and we'll pause it there. So the rest of it is Chris shooting, and we'll see what he does. So, what are our initial observations? What do you think? What do you think Chris is doing well, and what do you think he can do a little better? Alright. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, feel free to drop a video. Prairie, I'll be happy to have a second look. I've plenty of time today, so I'll do Chris first, and then if you want to show me something else, I'll have a look. Please feel free to send me videos. I'm interested in how you shoot. Okay, so let's talk through Chris for a bit here, and we'll turn this stuff off now, because there's no sound anymore. Shoot. Oops. There we go. Okay, so let's look through this a bit more carefully. So we've seen Chris shoot. Let's go through a bit more detail. So what is Chris doing well, and what could he do a bit better? Let's say, firstly, I think his feet position, as you can see just down here, is quite good. It's looks like perpendicular. Oh, sorry, it's square, slightly open, comfortable stance, good width there. So that part's looking pretty good. So his posture is okay. I'm not sure if the camera angle show him leaning back, but it's nice to have a straighter back, especially when you're starting out. You want this nice straight shape. You get to the position here, and up to this point, things are looking pretty well actually. I think for someone who's just starting out, this is a pretty good position to try and replicate. So his form looks okay. The process needs a bit of work. Now, I personally identified 2 things to work on. You might find something different. So as I watch the first shot, notice that he's shooting 3 under. That's completely fine. Normally when you're doing this, you would shoot split finger, especially if you're doing instinctive. If you're doing string walking or face walking, 3 under it's more normal. And he's not really aiming per se. So I think the 3 under, I think Chris might experiment with 3 under or split finger. I think he'll find that split finger is a bit more natural. 3 under is really meant to be an aiming method, and it depends on how you're taught, but that in itself isn't a form fault. Now, the small thing I'll point out, because I do these things, is the bow hand grip. Now, watch the way he holds the bow. It's not bad or wrong, but it's a small thing which can influence your shot. So you can see the way he starts with his bow hand, it's extended and the fingers are tense, so they're fully pointing outwards. And as he comes to full draw, he snatches the bow, and he does this several times. He'll either ease the grip and he'll slowly grip the bow, or he'll snatch the bow on release. And this isn't a huge problem, but it can lead to inconsistencies. That wasn't it there. Let's watch again. So he starts with his hands fully extended. There we go. So that's the slow squeeze. So the previous shot was a very quick snatch. I think it was this shot here. So when he... previous one. Sorry. Yeah, we get there. This one here. So this shot he snatches, and this shot he slowly squeezes once to get the thing right. There are shortcuts for YouTube, which I can't remember. There we go. That's a slow squeeze. That is going to be a problem, especially when you're trying to hit a pinpoint target, or when you are trying to shoot a long distance target, because that changes the tension line and the pressure point on your hand. So when you have this thing, in fact, we'll play in slow motion because we can. Thank you, YouTube. Wait, can I? Yes, I can. Yes. All right, let's do half speed, and we'll see what I mean by how it changes the tension line. So you can see his hands are fully extended, and then he grasped it right there. Right, and that's going to change. So that's one thing I would recommend changing, is just be aware of your bow grip. Now, the best solution for this is, surprise, surprise, a bow sling. If you use a finger sling or a wrist sling, that's going to solve the problem immediately. The bow grip is something you should not underestimate, because that will influence much of your shot process. If you don't grip the bow correctly, your arm alignment and your shoulder alignment will be wrong. You might have the right feet position, but you won't necessarily have the right body position, and the bow grip can be the source of that. So that's one thing I pointed out in the feedback, that was to just watch out for that bow hand. The second thing, which I think some of you in chat have already pointed out, is his anchor point, and that's something I also identified. So when you see him shoot, he doesn't actually anchor. We'll watch him shoot in slow motion, and you'll see the point here. Okay, so this is his next shot. I like his feet position. He is being conscious of where he's standing. That's good. Now, okay, so someone in chat pointed out a high draw. Yes, that is a sky draw. That is dangerous. I would not recommend this at all. It's illegal in shot clubs. And given that he seems to be shooting his backyard, that is dangerous. You don't. That is the point. That is the point where you would consider it to be a sky draw. This is worth mentioning because it's always nice mentioning the sky draw. What you see, like you see professionals like Jean-Claude Valadont, and they have a very modified draw where they have to email me, Parried. I might have it in chat because live chat kind of blocks things, and I'm not monitoring chat right now. But yeah, so like some pro archers will tend to anchor a little high. Remember that JC Valadont will, he does it because of a shoulder injury, and he modifies so that he does stay within the legal limits. But, this is the big but, when you don't have that limitation, you have to be very careful how you draw. Hypothetically, if Chris chooses to shoot in a club environment or in a competition, he will be, he will be pinged for an illegal draw. And just check out my video on illegal draws. You can't sky draw. And the ruling is that when the draw begins, the arrow should be in line with the target. That is, it should be aimed in a way so that the arrow should not go above the target if released. Now, he's shooting, I imagine, in a very short distance in his backyard, so he's not aiming upwards. You can see in the shot that he aims basically parallel to the ground. But when you begin to draw from up here, if you let go by accident, that arrow will go 20 meters behind the target. And if you're shooting next to your fence, it will go to the next property and beyond. So you have to be very careful. That's something I didn't initially give feedback on, but something very important to watch out for is that sky draw. That is hugely important. And you see here, this is what I mean by the angle. If you go back just 10 seconds, you'll see he starts to draw. If he lifts the bow but only draws when he pulls it down, that's okay. But he starts very high. If he lets go from here, that will go 10 meters past the target. So he draws very high. Secondly, as you can see, there's no anchor and there's no aim. We'll see the shot there. It's in slow motion, so we'll go full speed. And you'll see what I mean by there's no anchor point. So we go next shot. And let's go and see. So again, that... Okay, it restarted. It's not a consistent draw, I think. It only sometimes got... That was okay. Okay, that was a good example of a fairly normal draw. It's a little high, but also not a high draw. So that one there was okay. So you can see that's just above where the target would be. I'm not sure where his target is, actually. He's going that way. So target's probably kind of, a normal height. So that would be acceptable. So that's okay. Let's watch the game. This draw is okay. Whereas his previous draw, which I believe was one of these ones. Was it this one? Yeah. That. No. This one. That's an illegal draw, whereas the one we just saw there was not. So that one there just shot there was fine, basically. Now, we've seen before in his anchor point, he doesn't really anchor. Watch it full speed again, because you'll see the discrepancy in his shot. So what he does, he basically pulls back to his face and lets go. That's what he does. That to me is the best example of that shot there. He pulls back, let's go immediately, there's no anchor point. This is something which is fairly normal for a lot of learners, where you need to be taught anchor point. Anchor point is one of the things which is somewhat unique to archery, that you need someone to tell you to do, because you won't acquire it naturally. It's not an obvious biomechanical thing. So he draws back, and there, he just lets go immediately. So at this point, what he should be doing, and you see he doesn't pause enough for me to commentate. So he should be anchoring. I'm not sure how his aim. He might be instinctive. He might just looking at the target, arrows in line. So he's basically he'll let go. And if you shoot like this at 10 meters, you'll be fine actually. You can group like this at 10 meters, but it's almost like it's an automatic process. This is basically the purest of instinctive archery, where you're not even aiming. So he's roughly aiming, but it's not really using anything to help him out. But the risk of having no anchor means that even if he's looking at the target correctly, his hand isn't in the same position every time. So every time he shoots, this arrow will be pointed slightly up or down or left or right. He needs to press close to his face of his bow, of his drawing hand. And that's why people use the cheek or the corner of the mouth as reference points. You need to push closer and then spend a moment to look at the target, check his aim, and then release. And what he's done here, he goes straight in, let's go right away. Even instinctive snap shooters will anchor first. There won't be a point where they just draw back and shoot right away, unless you're actually trying to hit something moving, for example. But you can see in every shot, that was an email from Perry, I believe. Yes, I'll check that a bit later. Alright, so as you can see that was shot before, same sort of thing. It's a consistent pattern, so it wasn't a one-off. So next shot, he goes in, and there we go. So it's, I mean, most of the things here are pretty typical for a beginner. The shoulders are pretty nice actually. The stance is actually pretty good. And the only thing here to really worry about, apart from the high draw, would be the process. So just making sure that there is an anchor position in this step. Alright, if you go one last shot. So we said before the hand is a problem. The high draw is a problem. You see it's not consistent, so some draws he starts a bit lower. This draw is very high, and it's dangerously high. As you can see, it'll go towards Samoa or something. And that wasn't a very nice draw too. He kind of pulls in closer. His previous draw, I think, was a little cleaner. That's a high draw. So you can see that one draws in line. So he follows the line of his forearm because close to his anchor point. Whereas this last shot here, he doesn't do the same thing. So he comes up very high, and then it comes diagonally downwards. And again, as a beginner, you always build consistency. So over time, as he practices and watches for his form, he will find that his drawing motion will follow the same path most times. And that's the pathway for his improvement. I think we've got one more shot here. Let's see if he does the same thing again with the high draw. That's normal. The arrow always comes off when people learn archery for the first time. So he'll fix that. Alright, so the open hand, which will close on release. Finger sling solve this problem. That's a great draw, by the way. We've kind of hammered his high draw, but that is the perfect inline draw. And what a difference that was. We see, like the previous shot, how he angles extremely high. Let's go back. That was not too bad. That one was, yeah. He starts very high on that draw. Whereas the last shot, he draws straight in line. Look at this. This is a nice one. This is a good setup position for beginner. This is actually good. Hips are great. Back is pretty good. Feet are nice. His shoulders are good. You can see that there's a lot of tension in his hand. The spear grip is something which a lot of new people do, but it actually adds tension and he'll grip the bow and release. But the way he starts here, this is good line. The forearm is in line with the arrow. This is as clean as it gets. So this draw is actually pretty good. Bit of bicep movement, that's okay. That's a pretty straight draw. So this draw motion looks okay. Nothing wrong with this. But like we said before, the anchor. He needs to hold at anchor, as in push the string and the fingers against his face, against his lips or against his cheek. Have a solid anchor point, and then release the arrow. And if he does that, he'll be shooting very good groupings at his practice distance. So that is my analysis. What do you think, chap? What else do you think we could do? I've got an email from, I think Perry just sent me one there, so I'll have a look at that in a moment. But what do you think? Anything else you would add for Chris? And that's a very good exercise there. I'll grab the next video. I can't always do this. I've got some time off at the moment, so I can do this. But hopefully we get a chance to do a few more. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay, from Johnny. Ah, great. I'll have a quick look here at the YouTube link. This is while chat's going. Let's have a quick look here. Okay. Alright, I've put the video up. Thanks, Period, by the way. Okay. So, chat, where were we? Okay, oh, chat's pretty quiet. So yeah, that's my. And I think most of us caught the form for things there. So we said before, the high draw uses back more. Yeah, back tension is something I would probably recommend more so in later sessions. I'm not sure how long it's been shooting for, but back tension is something you will acquire. But at the same time, back tension is something which you need to also be taught or shown. It's very hard to do it yourself because you need to know you're doing it right. It's really much about the right feeling, and unless someone can tell you what the right feeling is, it's kind of hard to acquire by yourself. But yeah, back tension is something to work towards. He needs to anchor. The high draw is a little worrying, and the front hand. Okay, so I think we're looking pretty good here. The mic seems fine. My bar's okay. If it's off, just let me know. I seem to be working alright. Okay, so let's go to our next one. This is from Period. They just emailed me. I haven't seen it yet, but let's have a watch. This looks interesting. I think with some interesting information we can look at over here. Let's have a look at Period. Alright. By the way, you want sound on? Because I don't have the sound on right now, so I'll just put it on. You might hear some feedback, so I'm trying to hear my headphones too. In fact, I will headphone this. I'm gonna look like a real streamer now because I have the headphones on. So this is like what people on Twitch do, right? They have the headphones on or earphones. But let's watch. Let's see Johnny over here. Okay. Is that a fiber bow? It is, isn't it? That's the fiber bow 5.3. The really light fire. Is it fiberglass? Is it fiberglass? It's a pretty rare bow, actually. It's nice to see this. I'm using clicker as well. So you're shooting a bare bow with clicker, which technically isn't a bare bow. So that's actually one of the things you can't use on a bare bow. You can use plungers, you can't use clickers on a bare bow. It's nice to have a draw check. It's good practice. What's the draw weight, by the way, Johnny? If you can just type it in chat, it's probably somewhere. I just can't see what it is right now. Just check the draw weight for me. Okay, interesting. All right. I was just busy admiring the bow. I didn't have time to actually analyze. We'll go through it a bit more later. It's carbon fiber, yes, excellent. Let's see. So you do use a site, but it's not on there right now. Okay, so just doing form practice. That's fine. And it's £26. Okay, all right. So let's talk through this in a bit more detail. So oh, there it is, £26. Let's have a closer look. So there are a few things here which I'll quickly point out. When I watch the first shot again. Okay, I see what you need to improve. All right, so I'll do a few shots. It's good to analyze patterns more so than individual shots. But let's see the next shot. Do the same thing. I'm just watching out for a couple of things in particular. That's what I do when I watch. I like to just watch it a few times before I commentate. Okay, I'll use this one as an example. This is a third shot. By now it's normally settled. We'll slow it down because there are a couple of things here. Okay, so what I'm watching for two things here. I'm watching for the point of the arrow through the clicker. I'm also watching out for the drawing hand, how that moves. So those are two things. I'll say firstly, by the way, as a general comment, Johnny, one thing I would really recommend is slow down your shot process. If you watch at full speed, that's a very quick process. That is a little too quick for me. It's good to get the draw over and done with because you don't want to waste too much energy on the draw itself. That's a waste. But I do feel that we're skipping some steps here. That's what I mean. Normally, I'll flip back to here. So normally what I would recommend is that you go through the steps as you're taught. So if you have your bow, which I don't have here right now, sorry, headphones off. What I would recommend is you go through each step in your mind and you walk through, you go through it in person. So what you should do is have a set position where you keep your shoulders down, your stance is correct, your fingers on the string, and you just hold that for a bit. Then you raise the bow, then you draw it back and anchor, and then you release. What I'm seeing here in this video is a rush process. So everything is one movement. So it's a very quick up back release or up back clicker release. That can work okay, but you won't see any of the experienced pro shooters do this. It's too fast a process. It's very hard to get your head in the right mindset. You need to visualize what you're doing first, go through the steps. And when people learn to do it slowly, you don't have to do it slowly, but to me it's a bit too quick. It also leads to more inconsistency. So your draw won't quite be the same length, it won't be the same anchor point. So do keep an eye out for the speed or the rhythm you're doing. It's a very quick in and then expand. It's a little hard to do consistently. So that's my first point of feedback. So if you watch the scene again, let's go to the clicker usage. You can see at full speed, that's a very fast motion. We saw Chris before, he had a pretty good draw rhythm. It was a high draw, but the rhythm was good. This one's a fast rhythm, so it's a bit too rapid. Things that, again, when you get the full draw, you're kind of hesitating, so you're not quite there. It's a fast draw, but you're not mentally ready to do this part yet. So you need to pace yourself so that when you get to full draw, you kind of already know where you're anchoring, where you're aiming. You're not really trying to figure out, am I in the right place? So there's a slight movement there, and that's not too bad. But we'll watch the clickers usage more carefully. So let's go to our half speed again, and we'll watch the next shot actually. Okay, so again, even at half speed, this is actually probably faster than what people normally draw at half speed. So you're probably going 2 times too fast, but that's my opinion. You probably will find it easy to shoot while we slow it down a bit. So let's go back to start. Now watching 2 things. Now my eyes are focused on different things, so I'll do one thing at a time. First we'll check the clicker, then we'll check the bow hand, or drawer hand, sorry. So it draws back, and good distance by the way. So clicker is right on point. If we go to a neck shot, I think the clicker is very good for the length of the arrows there. And there's no forward movement. That's a good smooth process. So the shot through the clicker is good. That was a little further out. So that wasn't the best shot there. That was a little further out, but most of the other shots, the click is right on point. The arrow goes back in one direction, which means that it's a good process. So the clicker for the most part, okay. Now the next part is the drawing hand, because I'm watching for movement in the drawing hand. So we get the anchor point. That's okay. That wasn't too bad. Let's do the next one. Because what I'm looking for is that the anchor should stay very still, and I should see some shoulder expansion, not hand moving back. What I'm worried about here is the anchor point. What is the reference point here? Because we're touching what looks like the middle of the chin with your fingers. The common anchor point for bear bow would be closer to the corner of the mouth, and whereas for Olympic recurve with sights, it's under the chin. This is a very unusual anchor point because there's nothing here to reference. Let's flip back to my camera feed here, because yeah, what I'm seeing kind of is you're touching here, but what here is your point, because there's no bone here, there's no like something jutting out. If you go here, corner of your mouth makes sense. Here makes sense. Here not so much. I mean, the nose could work, but the head moves, and you see what Johnny does in this thing. He actually moves his head several times each shot. So we go back to our thing. So there is string the nose. That's true. But the thing is that that's a single point reference, and the chin isn't the strongest one. So it can work definitely. I feel it's a weak anchor. I'm saying it's a bad anchor. I feel it's a bit of a weak anchor, because you can always pivot your face to match the string. But I'll grab a bow right now. I've got a bow here. Might as well show it to you. Trusty sage. Okay. All right. So the thing I'm trying to point out here is that if you're drawing back and you touch your chin and then you move your head to your string, that to me is not a reliable, consistent anchor. Because again, you want to keep your head still where possible, because your head is a variable. Your head position, if you change your angle, change your head, then that's one thing you will do subconsciously to get the string of the nose, which may change your string picture or your alignment. So it's not the best anchor point, as you clarified correctly there, Perry, Johnny. So what I recommend is you choose one. If you're shooting sights, go to your jaw anchor. That's the most solid. Anchor the jaw, and then the string will come from your nose anyway. So lips here, nose here, and anchor here. That's a 3-point reference. Standard for sights. Ouch. Don't practice on a 4-to-5 pound bow like that. But yeah, it's you want that 3-point thing. If you're shooting bear bow, corner mouth works fine, or cheeks. So some people shoot here, some people shoot here, but the chin is a bit of a weak anchor point. Would not recommend. Did someone email me a video? Maybe. See, I'll check later. So that's one thing. Chin anchor, not my favorite point there. Would recommend something a little different. Is it every shot you do? Because I just realized this. Let's go back a bit here. Yeah, alright. So we need more of a better anchor point. So when we draw back, let's get slow down a bit here. When we go back there, yeah. So the clicker usage at the moment actually isn't that useful if the anchor point isn't consistent. So you're drawn to the same place each time, but it's a weak reference point. So I do really recommend you draw further back and reach your chin anchor, especially if you're using sights. That will mean that your draw length will increase. That means you move your clicker inside. So your clicker is now set to maximum on your extension. So if you draw to your... There we go. See the head movement there? That's a small thing there. It's pointed out there. So you move your head to your anchor, and that's gonna make you change your head position slightly each shot. But if you draw to your chin, which is down here or under your jaw, that will add about half an inch. So just move your click in just a bit to compensate for the extra length. So that's the main thing there. Let's go back to full speed because I've kind of lost track of the tempo. All right, let's do a last shot from this one. Yeah, the main thing I'd say is the anchor point there. The shoulders are okay. Nothing bad about that. Let's go back to the beginning for a bit. Shoulders seem fine. It's mostly, I was watching the draw here. I wasn't sure what you were touching. Yeah, I'd say one, slow down your draw and determine an anchor point which works better. You can see, like in this case, the head's positioned in one way, or as you go to the next scene, next shot towards the end, the head will be positioned slightly differently. I think this one's the one. Yeah, so sometimes the head tilts downwards, sometimes it's slightly up, so you kind of draw to a different point vertically on your chin, and as a result your head moves to a different spot. You do have a reference point, but it's just that the anchor point here should be a bit more tight against probably your jawline, I reckon, transitioning sides and stabilizers later on. So that, I think, is my analysis. I think the release is okay, nothing wrong with that. Let's go through one more shot. Yeah, I'd say you're mostly there. Your process is okay. You'll be shooting fine at short distance. The release is pretty good. It's nice and clean. Follows through nicely. But I'd say the main thing is to watch the anchor point there. I think that shows it perfectly. That's an unusual anchor point. It's a bit too far forward. Doesn't give you much of a reference point. So I'd recommend a different one, either corner the mouth for bare bow or under the chin for sighted or freestyle recurve. So that's my analysis. Phew, there we go. Thanks for that, by the way. That's a good video to look at. Someone emailed me. I'm not sure if that was anything too important, but what do you think, guys? Any other advice for Johnny? Because that was a very good video to look through. Again, most of these processes are there. The shot process is in place, and like I said, slow it down, walk through the steps in a bit more detail. Well, more conscious, so that way you replicate the same thing each time, the same shoulder position, the same hip position, the same draw cycle. I think this is what Chris did before, was he sometimes drew very high, he sometimes drew low, and that will change the way you shoot. But yeah, and anchor point was the other one too. Alright, some quick questions. How long have you been streaming for, by the way? It's been half an hour, good. Okay, so some questions. Yimain, do you consider a quiver necessary for beginners? No, that's one thing you don't need. A quiver is a quality of life sort of thing. If you can keep arrows close by, that's fine. Perry Lilo makes a very good point there. One of the bugbears which I have with learning archers is, yes, they leave the arrows somewhere else. So you shoot something, then you step away, you pick an arrow up, you walk back. You've got to keep your feet in the same position, because if you move your feet all the time, then you're just messing up your shot cycle. You want to keep your feet still. So having a quiver or a road cone or some pouch or put in your belt, something where you don't have to pick arrows up from the ground. Otherwise, too many things change, and it just makes it a little difficult for you to develop consistency. That's one thing. Do you need to buy one? No, it's purely optional, but a lot of people will buy one as soon as they buy the gear. So like, they buy the gear, it comes in, they realize, oh, I don't have a quiver, then I'll buy one. It's just, you can buy really cheap ones. Having a quiver just makes life easier. Is it necessary? No, but it just makes a lot easier. What quivers would be best? I have a video on that, by the way. Quivers, what's the difference? Whatever you can afford. Like, I personally would rather buy a very good quiver, which I would want to use, and it's easy to use. So spend decent money on it. Like anything that costs like $50, 50 Australian dollars or US dollars would be okay. The luxury ones have more pouches, but up to you. All right. Other question. Lord Newhoff, you've recently injured your right shoulder and can no longer handle a 45-pound Hoyt Dorado. Would you recommend taking a break from archery and returning to a 45-pound or downgrading? Okay. Injury, rehab. I wouldn't recommend taking a break and coming back. You may recover from your injury, but you will have to condition yourself post-injury. So if you take a break, that means you're not using your artery muscles and your joints or whatever you're injured, then you will need to condition. I don't recommend taking a break and coming back to 4 to 5 pound, because the bow will still be 4 to 5 pound. That's not going to change. So if you take a break and you're struggling, and if you're struggling and you take a break and you come back, you'll still struggle. You need to do some kind of exercise to get back into shape. There could be stretching bands, it could be a lighter draw weight, but get back into it before you go back to your 4 to 5 pound bow. Because 4 to 5 pound isn't a joke. It's pretty much hunting level, and if you are injured, then you are going to be struggling and possibly aggravate the injury if you don't take care of yourself. So do find a way to rebuild your form. Ray, hi, how is his rotational draw? Not sure what we're talking about there. Clarify, please. Ray? Have I heard of bow fishing? Yeah, I heard of bow fishing. It's not exactly legal in Victoria, I think. So I can't do it here. Not really interested, but yeah, I've heard of it. I think that'll be it. So we'll take last questions for the next, let's say, 5 or so minutes. I think we've covered everything we need to. Thank you to Chris and to Johnny for uploading. And in future, if people want to have a live commentary, a live critique, I'm happy to have a look when I can. I just happen to have a day off right now. Got my hair cut, so I just want to, lighten up a bit here. A Hoyt Mystic Invader. What's that? Is that a compound bow? Or is that some kind of like, space gun or something? Mystic Invader. It's a compound bow. The only way you can tell is to measure it. Like, you can't give a model. Oh, that's a pretty old bow. You can't just give a model and say what weight is it. You have to measure it. Either use a bow scale or look up on the label what the draw weight is, because it's a compound bow, so it can be set to a different draw weight. So I'm not sure. It's a very old bow, huh? Yeah, I can't tell you, just because your particular bow will be set for a different draw weight. So measure it or take it to a shop, because I can't tell you. Yumane, can you use... Oh, thanks, by the way, Lord Noof. Between 60 and 70, thank you. Yumane, can you use a hunting bow for competition? Yes. There are a couple of limitations. One is draw weight. If you're using compound bow, then you can't exceed 60 pounds. 60 pound is the maximum draw weight for most competitions. If looking at the World Archery rules, that's the maximum draw weight, and your local rules will be probably 60 pound as well. So you can't shoot an 80 pound hunting compound in a competition. You need to wind it down to 60 pound. That's one thing. I see quite a few archers will wind their bow like 59 pound, because the bow scale might be slightly off. And the important thing is the judge's bow scale, not your bow scale, the judge's. So if the judge's bow scale is slightly miscalibrated, or on the day it just happens to have a weak spring and it gives you a higher draw weight, then you got to play safe. So there is a maxed draw weight for compound. The second thing to watch out for using hunting equipment is whether it's camouflaged. I've covered this in videos already about the camouflage rule. In most places, camouflage equipment is not allowed in competition. Now, formally, this is a World Archery rule which only covers World Archery events. Your national or state or local rules may differ. Now, a lot of organizations will just copy and paste the World Archery rule and saying, well, the World Archery rules say no camo, therefore you can't use camo. In Australia, on the other hand, if you're shooting in an Archery Australia competition, you are allowed to use camouflage bows, because we've made a bylaw saying that, well, camouflage bows are fairly affordable, they're cheap. Many young people or new people will start with a camouflage bow. That's fine. You can't use it in a World Archery event, but you can use it in an AA event. So check your rule set. But hunting bows often do come in camo. They're not always allowed. That's the other thing. So 2 factors for competition equipment is 1, be mindful of the maximum draw weight if compound. Secondly, be mindful of the camouflage if there's a rule for that. It's the 50 pound maximum rate for it. I believe it's the archer's draw length. Because compound has to be set for draw length. So I believe it's for the archer's draw, not for a 28-inch, because it's compound. There's no rule for the recurve. A lot of people misunderstand the max draw weight. They apply the compound for the recurve. No, the recurve draw weight, there is no max draw weight for recurve. The exception, at least I've seen in the Australian rules, is that for the junior divisions, there is a max draw weight for recurve. I guess it's because they don't want to advantage big teenagers. So the kids who grow faster and are bigger, if they use a heavier bow, they have an advantage over someone the same age or same age group, but it's a smaller person. So there's a big disparity over the max draw weight for a given teenager, but for an adult, that's not too important. But there is no max recurve draw weight. There's a max compound, not a max recurve. What else is there? Making videos on targets, as in target materials. I've already made two. I've made one for target sizes, made one for target materials. Not DIY. We've got club targets which we've made and we've bought, so I've compared different club targets. But I haven't done a DIY. Did it cut off? I'm sure it'll be okay in a few seconds. Of course, we stream from Australia, so that'd be a little weird. But the question there's a bow sight with a built-in rangefinder. It might be used for hunting. I don't think it's particularly useful for the competition, because you know the distance already. But it's more of a hunting thing, possibly. Let's see, what else is there? Commercial break. Yeah, true. 45. There might be a 45 limit. Yeah, I'm still live, by the way. It's interesting. It's a play ad button which you can push, but I haven't pushed it yet. Amina, I'm a 14-year-old. What is the shooting distance I should be able to do, and what poundage of bow should I be using? I can't dictate what pound you should be using, but for a 14-year-old, I'll probably say around 20 pound. For distance, start at 10, and you'll eventually go to 20, 30, maybe 40 meters. But for a 14-year-old, you'll probably be shooting more than 30 meters. So 30 meters, 20 pound should be okay. Okay, that will end my live stream for today, I reckon. I think some people have some connections problem, or maybe I am. But yeah, like I said, this is a trial. If you have any form videos which you want me to give commentary or critique and use it as an education tool for other people, then send me. I want to do this. It's kind of easy for me to do it this way rather than type it out, because when I type it out, I have to imagine that you see what I see. So whereas I can show you, then that makes it a bit easier. So they call it a form of, I guess, free online live coaching, if you call it that. But in any case, thank you all for following. I am, of course, NUSensei. I'll be doing some more videos later today, hopefully not live streams, but some other stuff. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you find it helpful, and I'll see you next time.